Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to Ruach Adonai, the Spirit of God. I'm Dr. Barry Kraft, and this is my wife, Fran. We co-pastor Ruach Adonai. We're going to begin the evening with the lighting of the Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirishanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu lehiot or lagoyim v'natan lanu et Yeshua or ha'olam. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with thy commandments and sent us to be a light to the nations, and gave us your Son, the Messiah, Yeshua, to be a light to the world. Amen.
Now we face east for the recital of the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam Voed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever. Now we're going to partake in communion. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Amotei lechem min haaretz. Amen. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth the bread from the earth. This represents Yeshua's body, broken for us at Calvary. Let's take it in remembrance of him. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who created the fruit of the vine. This represents the life-giving, healing blood that Yeshua shed for the sin of the world. Let's drink it in remembrance of him. L'chaim, to life. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Hey, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Hey! We're going to begin tonight's service with the reading of the parashah. The Torah reading was in Numbers 4:21 to 7:89. Numbers shows the painful consequences of unbelief and irresponsible decisions on the part of God's chosen people. God's love is kind, so kind, but it can also be severe. His people needed to learn that they can move forward only as they trust and depend upon him. For a productive life, we all must trust and depend upon him. In chapter 4, it talks about the duty of the Levites. It was interesting that one could not take on any duties in the temple or be counted in the census until they were 30 years or older. Interestingly enough, Yeshua did not begin his ministry until he was 30 years old. Jesus' ministry was one of just freeing the world from sin. The main theme of chapter 5 is the development of purity in the camp of the Israelites. They were preparing for entering into the promised land. We can't experience the joy of the promised land unless we ourselves here on earth walk in purity, pure heart, pure thoughts. Purity gets us into what God has in store for us. In chapter 6, the Lord told Moses and Aaron to bless the people of Israel, and he gave them in verses 25 to 26 the Aaronic benediction. Chapter 7 presents a scene of pomp, ceremony, and ritual. Each of the leaders of the 12 tribes brought a special gift from his tribe to the Lord for his altar. They, with a full heart, wanted to honor the Lord. The Haftorah portion comes from Judges 13, 2-25. It describes the birth of Samson. He was, interestingly enough, he was the last judge in Israel. He was the last judge. Significant was, in that chapter, was the presence of the angel of the Lord. The Brit Chadashah portion was from Luke 1, 11-20. An angel of the Lord appeared before Zechariah, telling him that his wife Elizabeth will bear him a son, and he shall be called John. As with Samuel and as with Samson, a vow was imposed on that child that indicated his special consecration to the Lord. John's mission was to prepare Israel for the coming Messiah.
Wow.
Thank you for that, my husband, my pastor. Well, as you can see this week, I'm dressed in red, white, and blue because I'm in an American frame of mind. I love this country so much, and it saddens me to see all the ills and all the flaws and all the problems, but still, I love the US of A. A recent Facebook entry had a woman coming out of her house looking down the road to see what chapter of Revelation was to appear on the world stage next. On the heels of the coronavirus that rocked the world, we find our television screens filled with images of enraged people looting, rioting, random acts of violence towards citizens from law enforcement agencies and vice versa, with government and official buildings being burned, attacked, and national monuments being defaced, and our innocent policemen being attacked as well. This is going on across our broken nation in response to the latest murder of a black person by a white policeman. Over a week ago, we witnessed the disturbing murder of George Floyd, and as he lay on the ground begging for his life from a law enforcement agent, 3 other policemen stood by silently watching. This is just the latest in a long history of racially motivated injustices. It's symptomatic of a sick, broken society and goes beyond race to the human race. There's a litany of brokenness and injustice and evil abounding across the world. At minimum, we need to view life through corrective lenses, not with the same inherent biases or cliches, if we are to see and have lasting changes. But why should we be surprised? When 2,500 years ago, it was stated in 2 Timothy verse 3, in the last times, hard times will come. People will love themselves. They will love money. They will talk about themselves and be proud. They will say wrong things about people. They will not obey their parents. They will not be thankful. They will not keep anything holy. They will have no love. They will not agree with anybody. They will tell lies about people. They will have no self-control. They will beat people. They will not love anything that is good. They cannot be trusted. They will act quickly without thinking. They're proud of themselves. They love to have fun more than they love God. They act as if they worship God, yet they do not let God's power work in their lives. Keep away from people like that, he warned. Oh, how I wish we could keep away from people like that. However, they are all around us. They're in positions of power. They're our neighbors. They're in local shops. And worse yet, they're in our churches. We have to ask ourselves, where is God in all this? Why did God allow the Georges, the Trayvons, the Martin Luther Kings, and the 6 million Jews to succumb to hate and evil? The prophet Habakkuk, who speaks of an impending invasion by Babylon during Jehoiakim's reign from 609 to 598 BC, who led his people, the Israelites, into evil. I like how Habakkuk talks to God, much the same way you or I might plead our cause. He asks questions of the whys and the hows. He fully understands the need for the rebuke, but questions why would God use such heathens like the Babylons to inflict the punishment on his people. Habakkuk's prophecy was directed to a world that through the eyes of God's people must have seemed on the edge of disaster, much like where we're at today and experiencing right now with civil unrest, pestilence, plagues, unemployment, surge of violence, natural disasters, and a predicted falling away from the church. Habakkuk initiates the conversation with God because he's so distressed over God's apparent inaction in the world. He wanted to see God doing more about the injustices of the evildoers. We see here a frustrated man who eventually turns to his frustration into prayers and finally prays. But he begins by being mystified in a world where so much evil was openly thriving, while apparently God was doing nothing. This book reminds us that while God may seem uninvolved in our struggles, he always has a plan to deal with evil and always works out injustice eventually. The example of Habakkuk encourages believers to wait on the Lord, expecting that he will indeed work out all things for our good. God answers Habakkuk with the same honesty, and he basically says, look around the world and be astounded, for I am doing a work. You would not believe it even if I told you. The Lord then says to Habakkuk, I want you to put your faith in me. In 1967, during another time of civil unrest in the city of Detroit, riots took place for 5 days of looting. 43 people died, 342 were injured. 1,400 buildings were burned and destroyed. 7,000 National Guards and Army troops were called in. So this is nothing new, people. Billy Graham expressed the following thoughts during this time on injustice. Let us have no imitation Christian love. Let us have a genuine break from evil and a real devotion to good. When trials come, endure them patiently, steadfastly. Maintain the habit of prayer. And as for those who try to make your life a misery, bless them. Don't curse. Don't pay back a bad turn by a bad turn. Live at peace with everyone. Never take vengeance into your own hands. My dear friends, stand back and let God punish. Don't allow yourself to be overpowered by evil. Take the offensive and overpower evil with good. While it's true that social injustices need to be righted, that is not the whole problem. If only the human race would suddenly accept Christ, we would have the possibility of a new Christian order. We could approach our problems in the framework of Christian principles. To be sure, problems would still exist, but the atmosphere would be completely different. If we are to effectively deal with the complexities and challenges brought about by different races, cultures, ideologies sharing the globe, we must bear one another's sorrows, trials, and stand with them in their heartbreaks. Yeshua entered into our arena of troubles. He wept with those who wept, and he rejoiced with those who rejoiced. If you care enough to want to help people, you must sit where they sit. Most of our societal problems can be reduced to a heart issue. Man today is still in desperate need of the gospel. We can never reverse the dissolution of our morals without a spiritual awakening. And without acknowledging what Christ did on the cross for us, there can be no spiritual awakening. Nothing has ever changed individual lives and entire societies like the peacefully conquering power of the gospel of Jesus Christ, rightly taught and rightly lived. I saw these posts the other day. The problem is sin, not skin. There is only one race, the human race. The struggle transcends skin color. Last weekend, 19 black people in Chicago were murdered by their own people. It's about man's inhumanity to man, and it began with Cain killing his own brother. Not until and unless we can imagine our own sons and daughters having their lives brutally snuffed out by some overzealous, power-crazed, hate-driven person calling out for us, can we begin to heal the sickness invading our world called evil. I could go on and on describing injustice, brutality, carnage, and pain people inflict on one another. Each week, the news brings us fresh, heart-wrenching examples of this. In just a few weeks, unfortunately, the name George Floyd will be put to the back burner and will go on to the next brutality of man against man. So, yes, his tragic end will be replaced with yet another story, another problem emerging on the scene. But we know that there will come a time when every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. Believe that, wait for that, have faith that the final word still belongs to God. Amen?
Amen. Good work, Fran. Do you have any hints for the coronavirus? Any other things that you want to
I do. I have one. I haven't had one in a couple of weeks, but I wanted to show you that the hand sanitizer we've been using is 70% alcohol, and so it is very flammable. So you have to be very careful when you use it not to get around or have your hands near fire, because water will not put out the flame. So you could be in dire straits. So just a warning, 70% alcohol, and you need to be very careful of it. That's my hint today, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, let's close with the Aaronic benediction. V'yerechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha, Yisa Adonai p'nev alecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Adonai p'nev alecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. May the Lord's face smile down upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you peace. In the name of the Prince of Peace, our Sar Shalom, be blessed. We're taking our time in terms of restarting our congregation. DC3 is going to be starting this weekend. We have an older congregation, and we're just, I'd rather err on the safe side. So we're taking our time, but we will see you in person as the Lord guides us.
I would like to say one additional thing. Please do not grow weary of doing good. Good still trumps evil. And so we need to stand up for what is right and continue to doing that, living by God's word. God bless you all. Stay well. Stay safe.
Shabbat Shalom. Take care, folks.